Good afternoon and welcome to all of you who are in presence here and who are following this event in live streaming on the Sony CSL YouTube page. Sony Computer Science Laboratories, of which headquarters are in Tokyo, opens and presents today a new research center in Italy, the Sony CSL Rome. The Rome branch is Sony CSL's fourth location of research after Tokyo, Paris, and Kyoto, and will be focused to the research fields of information, sustainability, and to the intersection between artificial intelligence and art. So the specific research approach of Sony CSL combining science, technological innovation, art, and the public good. The topics of research, as we listen further on during the presentation, range from music to language, from the future of cities of sustainable agriculture, and from creative processes to humanity's great challenges. Sony CSL Rome is located in this historic and prestigious building, Enrico Fermi Study and Research Center, dedicated to the greatest scientists of our recent history, and represent a unique public-private effort of which, in the next speeches, we will understand the birth. This presentation is important not only to present the new project, the Sony CSL Rome project, to the public audience after the pandemic years, but inviting local and national institutions, the representatives of entrepreneurship and innovation. This is also an opportunity, an important opportunity, to explain and underline the potential synergies with the surrounding ecosystem. I remember everyone that this event is in live streaming on the Sony CSL YouTube channel, where in the next few days you will find the entire live stream and also the clips of individual speeches. If you wish, you can comment on the contents of this event, enriching the debate on the Sony CSL social property that are Sony CSL Paris and Rome on Twitter, Sony CSL Paris and Rome on LinkedIn. We will start with a series of speeches in which Sony will explain the new project of Sony CSL in Rome. Then we will hear about the Italian institution on the territory that have welcomed this new project. And after, at the end, that we will move on the dialogue session in which the study and research topics on the Sony CSL Rome will develop from expert researchers and professionists. Thank you for your attention, and let's start. Remotely connect from Japan, it's my pleasure to introduce you the first guest of this afternoon, Hiroaki Kitano, President and CEO of Sony CSL and CTO Sony Corp.
Well,
hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Kitano-san.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, thank you very much, for this wonderful opening ceremony. And we're very grateful, and we are very pleased to announce the opening of the Sony CSL Rome operation. And Sony CSL has been carrying the research for the humanity and for this planet. And that's the utmost importance. And as a scientist, as a technologist, it is extremely important for us to put our contribution to our civilization and this planet forward. And I think this is very important, and we made a specific strategic choice of the topic of the research, at the same time, where we're going to carry out the research. Tokyo and Paris are both metropolitan, cosmopolitan cities, and this is where we started. And recently, we added the Kyoto operation, which is a cultural center of all the very historic city, as you know, in Japan. And now we made a similar decisions to have our operation in Rome. And people might ask, why are you not going to the Silicon Valley? We decided to deep dive into our culture, and I think it's very important. And Sony being the company, pushing our civilization through the entertainment backed by the technology, I think this is very important and a very obvious choice for us. At the same time, Rome represents the issue of the urban lifestyle and the cities and the agriculture and the food and the other things, which I think is very important, for our daily life and in how we shape the future. And then also, I'm very happy that this operation going jointly with the Enrico Fermi Research Institute. I was actually trained as the particle physicist. Enrico Fermi is obviously the star. Enrico Fermi has been my hero, and he has done marvelous genius. Had outstanding research in both theory and experiment. If you remember, obviously, audience today is very knowledgeable about what Enrico Fermi accomplished. Fermi-Dirac statistics and beta decay theory. And those are the outstanding research and theoretical side of the particle physics. At the same time, he has carried out a significant research in creating artificial radioisotopes and the identifications and discovery of the slow-moving thermal neutrons. It's very rare for the for expert, even best expert, to be able to accomplish such outstanding research in both theory and experiment. Sony CSL role as a CSL as a whole would like to carry on the inherit the tradition of Enrico Fermi to be good at both theory and experiment. Theoretical side, we would like to come up with the new concept and theoretical work, that can be groundbreaking. At the same time, we like to go on for experiment that is not just experimental lab, but also we like to implement our research result into the real life. We like to change the world and impact the society. So we like to, carry the legacy of Enrico Fermi in our context. And in that sense, we are very grateful that we are situated in Enrico Fermi Institute. Now, let me talk about a little bit of CSL. Our guiding principle is act beyond borders. The borders are something that we created by ourselves. It's artifact of the human, culture. We consider, this is the physics, this is chemistry, this is research, or this is business. Those are all the borders we created. But the problem we are facing, all the global climate issues and all the issues that we are facing, I don't really go into specific items, but you can imagine, many issues we are facing. And it cannot be solved by the single research discipline or the distinction whether this is the research or the business, or cannot be solved by the single countries. I think we all have to work together. We have to put together all the ideas in a different discipline and to solve the problem. Also, we want to explore the potential of the mankind, and that requires a synergy between multiple disciplines. At the same time, Sony CSL is a very small institution, and we have only 30 researchers plus, and I think even if we increase the numbers, we think probably up to 40 or 50. We have no intention to increase the size of 200, 300 or 1,000. We want to be small. We want to be agile and nimble. And then you might question how we achieve our goal of changing the world in a better place. I think that is the we will leverage the power of the influence. If you have a great idea and prove that works, and they get the theoretical and very pioneering work in reality, we'll start having people and friends that we want to work together. That's why we want to augment the circle of influence, and that we're going to project throughout the world. That's why we should be able to work together to change the world. Sony CSL designed to be creating the first step of the change. And that way, we like to contribute to the world. At the same time, organizational structure of Sony CSL is designed. Now it's shifting dramatically how we organize our research lab. Is not really going to the central, but we're going to be more dispersive. We want to disperse in a geographical, and we disperse in terms of discipline. We want to disperse into that, in a way that how we're going to work together with different organizations, different companies, and different government institutions, so that we can actually penetrate, and we're going to work with the multiple stakeholders who are interested in changing the world to make a world in a better place. So this is what we are doing, has been doing now, and then we have a very specific topic which Vittorio will explain today, and his team will explain today. And we are very happy to be situated in Enrico Fermi and starting Rome operations. And we are very happy to be able to work together to make the world a better place in the future, and we'll do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kitano-san, for your contribution. And the next guest from Sony we will listen to will be Hideyuki Furumi, President of Sony Europe. Please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for a kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hideyuki Furumi. I'm the president of Sony Europe. On behalf of Sony Group of the companies in Europe, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of the distinguished guests who are in attendance today for this prestigious inauguration event of CSL Rome. You may know that Sony is a brand that is well known for professional as well as consumer electronics or PlayStation gaming or entertainment content such as pictures or music. But at the same time, beyond those businesses, Sony is very much committed to make the future of the world a better place. And in that regard, we are doing very strategic investment or starting of the initiatives in the region of Europe, and I should say particularly in Italy. Recently, we opened the semiconductor designing laboratories in Trento. Also here in Rome, we are doing so-called proof of concept or trial of a smart city utilizing our very highly capable sensing solutions. And today, it's my pleasure to support the opening of the second CSL laboratories in overseas. In fact, the only second place next to Paris is here in Rome. So as you know, that we are doing a lot of the strategic investment here in Italy. Now, in order to make all of these initiatives a success, I do believe that there are vital factors, a couple of vital factors. One is the availability of talent and resources, because in the field of development and research it is really down to richness of the talent that is a critical factor. And I do believe that we make the right choice of opening the laboratories here in Rome. Second, as Mr. Kitano mentioned, the very strong commitment from the Sony is a must. And third, and probably the most important factor, is the understanding, collaboration, and support by all of the partners as well as authority here in Rome. So taking this opportunity, I'd like to ask a continuous, warm, very rich support towards our initiatives for our mutual success. Thank you very much for coming to this event today.
Thank you to you, Furumi-san. And now I leave the floor to the one who created this project, the director of Sony Scientific Laboratories in Paris and now also in Rome, Vittorio Loreto, director Sony CSL Paris and Rome. And to complete the introduction, I have to say that Vittorio is also full professor of physics of complex systems at Sapienza University of Rome and faculty and complexity science up in Vienna. Please.
Thanks, Barbara, for the nice introduction. I'm so happy to see so many people, so many friends, so many new friends here. It's a big emotion, so let me take a few seconds just to recover. But so I will use a few slides also to support. This is a summary of what Kitano-san and Furumi-san, which I warmly thank, for their introduction, and not only, actually, also for their support to this project. I remember the endless discussion and conversation across the sea with Hiroaki, trying to discuss what is the best form for this new kind of initiative. And of course, I mean, this would not be possible without the full support of Sony Europe, and I thank, I mean, warmly Furumi-san for, because of course this is a complex operation even within a big corporation like this. So this is a reminder of the history of CSL, Sony Computer Science Lab. So it started long ago, I mean, 34 years ago in Tokyo. I would say with a bright idea. The bright idea was, let's create a unit with researchers free to explore with their creativity and their curiosity, whatever subject. So with almost, I would say, no connection to the needs of the corporation. You would say, okay, this could be crazy, but actually it worked, because CSL is still standing after 34 years. In '96, they opened the lab in Paris. And actually last year, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the lab in Paris with a big open house during the Maker Fair in Rome. Actually, I should thank Lorenzo Tagliavanti and Massimiliano Colella for making this possible. It was a very big Hermes desk. It was a very big initiative. After this, actually, very recently and very bravely, I would say, during the pandemic, they opened in Kyoto a new small lab, which is booming. And we are crazy enough also to discuss about the opening of this new lab during the pandemic. Actually, it took more or less 3 years of interactions, but the big part was during the pandemic. So we opened officially in October, but you know, the restrictions of COVID didn't allow to have a proper introduction. So here we are today. I should thank also Professor Luciano Pietronero, because without him actually, and really endless conversation about how can we do a joint public-private lab in a place like this. And this was at the end possible. Here we are. And for me, this place has a special meaning, I guess, for all the physicists and scientists in general. So I have fond memories of reading about Fermi and his research. So let me just give you a few details about what we are and what we're going to do. And let me start with something artistic. So these two pictures are the two artworks of an artist who is with us today, Fernando Cobello. Please raise your hand, Fernando. Here you are, okay? So it's not only this, actually. So we discussed with him for a few months, and we wanted to decorate our offices upstairs. The first floor, if you stay a little bit longer, you can admire all of this, also because you cannot appreciate the sides from these images. There are 12 panels like this, inspired to what we are as CSL, and also the kind of research we do here. And I guess, no boundaries, and the wonderments while working together, I guess, should be not only for CSL, but for everyone, every researcher, every curious people. So thanks again, Fernando, for this. So CSL Rome, the big idea we had in mind was to do something with an impact. You heard from Kitano-san, from Furumi-san, so what does it mean to have an impact? So of course we thought about big challenges, and nicely exemplified by this UN Sustainable Development Goals. And somehow the ambition is to be the center for diffusing new ideas, new solutions, and also new scenarios, okay? But of course validated scenarios, which means tested on the ground, okay, with the actual stakeholders, with the actual policymakers. That's why we invited a lot of actors of the local territory. And of course, also the ambition is try to contribute just a little bit to the policies and their implementation. Of course, whenever we face tough challenges, we are moving in this space. You don't know, but we are moving in this space. So at the boundary between what is actual, so François Jacob would say what is actual and what is possible. So actual is what you know already, or you pretend to know. Okay, so what you experience already. The possible is a set of all things which you can possibly experience in the near future or in the far future. But of course, this is an uncharted territory for us, right? Because you can guess a few things you can possibly do tomorrow, okay? But I guess if I show you this, I guess you couldn't predict this. This was during the lockdown in Paris, 18th of March, 2020, okay? Raise your hand, if you predicted that this was likely, okay? So of course this was possible, right? Because we were there, okay? We know very well that we were there, right? But this was possible, but not very likely. Okay, so when you face these kind of challenges, you have to think that the kind of system you are dealing with are non-stationary. So you cannot pretend that everything is not changing, okay? The statistics is known. I also, say this for whoever thinks that AI can solve everything, because of course, I mean, those kind of systems are very complex. They change over time. So we have to learn, I mean, how to adapt our tools, okay, and our methods to address these kind of challenges. And I guess we need compasses. So we need new tools. And I guess so we call them what-if machines, because are not actually machines, could be algorithms, could be procedures, could be a theorem, could be modeling schemes. But actually what we need is to know, I mean, what is the most likely evolution of a system under a specific set of actions. And I guess, I mean, all of you, if you are involved, I mean, in policy making, sometimes in the morning you think, perhaps I should do this, but perhaps you don't know what could be the impact of this action or the set of side effects of your action, okay? So I guess these kind of tools we are trying to construct will be very important to support, I mean, our way through this space of possibilities, and of course also our creativity. So now coming closer to the research questions. Of course, CSL Rome is a sort of spin-off at the beginning of what we do in Paris, and in Paris we do mainly 4 kind of activities. One is music and AI. Music and AI means not producing music through AI, but giving musicians and artists tools to create music. And actually the music, if you stay till the cocktail, the music you will listen during the cocktail will be, actually it's been produced through our tools by the musicians in Paris, okay. Then we have language, and of course, I mean, language is a big topic because misunderstanding is always there, and the deep meaning is a graal for even the most sophisticated natural language processing and AI tools. Then we span to agriculture. Agriculture means robotics for microfarming, which of course is very important with respect to how we produce food, how we consume food. And of course, I mean, this is integrated in the urban environment very strongly. And then there is the overarching umbrella of creativity, which means something fancy, but actually creativity means understanding how people navigate this complex space of possibilities in a way. And not only humans, also machines, because also machines are exploring this kind of space. So there are basically 3 research lines we already launched in Rome, and of course there will be more in the future. One is about sustainable cities. Actually, for each of them, you will hear a small dialogue, roughly 10 minutes at the beginning of the next session, just to have a sort of dialogue in which you understand a little bit better what is at stake. So sustainable cities, information and social dialogue. And the last one is augmented creativity, which, again, I will exploit Fernando for this. So this is how Fernando depicted augmented creativity. So I mean, the point is not delegate artificial intelligence to do the job for us. The point is, what can we do, I mean, by being helped by artificial intelligence. So the central role of human beings, I guess, is quite central for our research, and augmented creativity means precisely this. Of course, there are many directions here, so I have no time to go through all this, but of course, whenever you write or whenever you compose music, you want new tools, okay, to do this, like was a piano for Beethoven, for instance. And of course, there are the intersections between arts and technology. I'm very happy to welcome today with us Ralph Doom, who is sitting in the second row here, who is the program officer at the European Commission of this STARTS program. STARTS stands for Science, Technology, and Arts. And the idea is really to promote a close interaction, a close dialogue between artists, scientists, and technologists. We are part of this challenge in collaboration with Maxi. I see a few representatives here. We have 2 artists in residence. One of them will speak in one of these dialogue, Olga Kiseleva, I see there. And the idea is to face complex challenges about urban environments, for instance, through the collaboration of different minds. And of course, augmented creativity also means finding new solutions, new ideas. It's also finding predictive algorithms for many different domains, from patents to science, to products, to policies. Second big chapter, cities. You know how important are cities. Again, this is the interpretation of Fernando of our challenges. If you look at the left one, I mean, you can immediately see, I mean, the link with what we call now the 15-minute city, which is a sort of buzzword now. I mean, with the city sitting in one hand of a guy, so very close to our reach. And of course, there, I mean, I have no time to go through this, but we have several branches of activities. I mean, from the micro scale, looking at the actual mobility of people, and of course, the accessibility not only of places, but also opportunities for many different reasons. Then we have the macro scale, which is a longer time scale. Macro scale means looking at the socioeconomic indicators, their interplay, and how they affect, for instance, the quality of life or the inequality index, like Gini coefficient, this kind of stuff. And then, as Furumi-san mentioned, we have also the technological side using this IMX 500 sensors, which are Sony cameras, intelligent because there is a layer, an edge of AI coupled to the camera. So whatever image you take, actually, you sort out only the metadata, but not the sensible information. So you strip out, for instance, faces, plates, car plates, this kind of stuff. So we are already deploying these sensors. There are a few sensors in Via 20 Settembre in Rome, monitoring crossroads, also for safety, for instance, or public transportation, or parking slots, this kind of stuff. Last but not the least, infosphere. And again, Fernando had it right. I mean, imagining, how the infosphere is the complex ecosystem of how we produce information, how we exploit information as users, and ultimately how we change our opinions and, of course, take decisions based on this. And we know there are a lot of pathologies connected to this. So there are on the headlines every day. So misinformation, fake news, filter bubbles, hate speech, so you name it. Okay. So our ambition is try to find new ways, little by little, to heal somehow this kind of ecosystem. And again, here there are many things. We have to reconstruct trusts, which should be distributed. We need, a new generation of recommender system, which has to be creative. Creative means letting people explore a little bit further with respect to their comfort zone. And of course, mapping the public discourse, mapping somehow how divisive could be a specific piece of news in this situation. So we also created, it's not the actual actor, not all the actors are here, but we created this in collaboration with Centro Fermi, this Lab for News. So the Lab for News is supposed to interpolate, so fill the full pipeline between the basic research and the needs of editors and journalists. And of course, language is an important element here. So our language team in Paris is helping in that direction because as I said before, meaning is one of the most important elements, the most precious element in what we read. And of course, for understanding, it's very important to get it right. So I would say I stop here. But before closing, I guess the real challenge starts now, today or perhaps tomorrow morning. Okay, today we can relax. Tomorrow morning, because of course, starting from tomorrow, we have to make it right. Okay, make it right means not being alone. We cannot do this alone. So already the collaboration with Centro Fermi, public-private, is very important. So Sony is opening also the intellectual property rights and sharing with all the relevant stakeholders. But we invite all of you, to participate to this, because I guess we need all the pipeline in place, to take these challenges and bring them to the, hopefully, a very positive outcome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Vittorio, for your important focus on the newborn Sony CSL. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the director of this amazing and historical location that will host Sony CSL Rome, the president of Enrico Fermi Research Center, Luciano Pietronero, President CREF.
Thank you very much. I will not go into much technical, because you will hear, but I want to tell you a little bit about emotions, which also are important for creativity. So first, my big emotion today is to see you all here, to see this place full. For 2 years, I was nominated 2.5 years ago by this guy in the first line, Lorenzo Fioramonti, who was for me the minister and represented the government. And since for 2 years, apart from the first months, I've seen this beautiful aula empty. Was real sorrow and suffering. So first, I thank you all individually for coming here and for, doing what we should do, enjoy activities and be active, happy and everything. So I have a real emotion to see this aula full. Thanks a lot. I hope we'll do it again many, many times, every day if possible. Okay, so this is my first feeling. The second feeling is that I'm here since 2.5 years, but this place as a scientific entity was established 20 years ago by Athos De Luca. Athos De Luca was a senator, and together with an initiative of the so-called Via Panisperna Association and so on, they pushed the idea that this historical location where, things have happened really in the history, not only of science, but of the world, happened here. So this historical location would be again a scientific institution. This happened in 1999, so many, many years ago, by Athos De Luca. However, this place was full of, police or people from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So it took many, many years, to somehow to move these people, to restore this building, very nicely restored. And finally, the building was ready at the end of 2019, more or less when I was appointed. So I had this fantastic opportunity to have an empty building. Usually one has the opposite problem. If you go to university, I spent more than 30 years at Sapienza and about 15 years, more or less, as director of something at CNR as well. So often the problem is, where to find some space for people. And here was the opposite. Here we had a white sheet for the project and an empty building, which on one hand is nice, on the other hand is a big responsibility. Anyhow, I try to enjoy and do my best also with many friends, and here a little bit experiences came to help me. Once you are sort of old, you know a few things. Many things are negative, but experience helps. My experience was that having worked a lot with the university, Sapienza mostly, also others abroad, I spent many years in other countries and 10 years in industry, in Xerox, US, and Brown Boveri in Zurich. So it is not by accident that you see the industry here. It comes from my young youth of an industry researcher. And I have to tell you that for me, industry was a place where I was very free. I was more free in the industry than as a university professor. When I say these people are astonished, but it was a different time. The situation was much better for research in industry. But somehow I spent years in industry which were very free. Of course, I helped the people around me, but this left me a huge amount of free time. And I think this is a big value because, industry is fundamental in modern society. And in Italy, sometimes young students have the impression that industry just wants to make money, but this is not really what it is. Every place where you eat 3 times a day, that you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, every nation that has this characteristic has a healthy industry. So industry is part of our life. We have to have a good relation between academia, science, and industry. It should be mutually respectful, so nobody should take over. And together we should do very nice things. And personally, I had a very positive experience. So for me, the relation with industry was always something to look forward, and where Italy is relatively weak. The technology transfer problem in Italy is not our strongest point. Science is proportionally better off, but tech transfer is somewhat weak. So this idea to deal with a modern, active, beautiful industry like Sony is for me a special pleasure of this relation, which I like to introduce, to stimulate, to have industry. We had here also other meetings with smaller industries. So we made a meeting with Scienza e Impresa Digitale, Science and Digital Companies. So we're small, I mean, companies up to 1,000 people, relatively local. We try to develop specific research projects. So this is for me something from my youth, okay? And so I'm especially glad that this now is happening. The second thing is that when I decided to come back to Italy, I was somehow pretty competitive as a young guy, so I had many offers. I don't tell you where, but I mean, US, Germany, etc. And I decided, okay, I want to try Rome. You know, I grew up there. After all, for theoretical physics is good. And this was a good bet because what I found in Rome was a lot of traffic, a relatively inefficient system of transportation, something a little bit messy. Of course, it's beautiful, I mean. But I found marvelous students, you know. That was my strength, I mean, their strength. So one guy once he looked at my CV and he said, you know what, in your CV, the best part is the list of your students. Now this I took, I mean, I didn't know whether to take it positive or negative, but I decided that it is positive. So now I have in my office all the theses, 170 laureate or PhD theses are behind me with all the names. Everybody who comes looks for his name. And of course, a very prominent member of this list is Vittorio. So this is for me a special pleasure. And it was these great students were the strength. So I never regretted not to go in more prestigious, or at least formally prestigious places, I mean, with respect to Rome and Italy, because with the students, we could achieve a lot of things. And today we see one of these results. So the industry, the very good students, something original. So what we did with this white piece of sheet in the empty room, we decided to go for something original. I mean, we cannot be the copy of CNR or INFN or Sapienza. We should do something original. I had a lot of experience with CNR and Sapienza, and I knew the good points and some of the problematic things. So, for example, Sapienza is the place where there are many, many brilliant students. This is the strength of the place. On the other hand, university in Italy is made in compartments. The raggruppamenti disciplinari, it is something horrible. I mean, if you want to get a position, you have to work only in one field. It is a sort of absurd limitation. It is a historical whatever, I mean, but this we should try to eliminate. On the other hand, in CNR, this limitation is not there. CNR was much more open to interdisciplinary stuff. So in 2004, I was able to establish the Institute of Complex System of CNR, which today is directed by Claudio Conti very well, and is one of the standard institutions. This could not have been possible at the university because of these separate things. So I knew a little bit the weak points and strong points. Weak point in CNR, and here I'm glad to see the president of CNR, weak point of CNR is the lack of students. Because if you don't put young students, PhD and so on, these CNR institutes tend to be a little bit monady, isolated entities. So university has a lot of action with new people, students. On the other hand, it has the limitations in the areas, scientific area. CNR is more open. In the scientific area, it has the problem of not having the students. So I knew all these things, and then I decided to take the best out of this new place that we have here. So the first thing I did, I established the PhD program. Okay, so we have a PhD program with Rome 1, Rome Sapienza, Tor Vergata, and Rome 3, and every year 5 or 6 or more students come here with the PhD of the Fermi Center, so we have a continuous flow. Of course, we try to interact with everybody, with Sapienza, with CNR, etc., but on which topics? So the topics should be original, should have an identity here, so there should be a characteristic of that something is done here. It should not be just one addendum to standard activities, which can be, of course, marvelous, but I mean, we should define this identity of activities. So where to go? Well, you know, physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics are entities that were defined 2 or 3 centuries ago. But still, we have walls. We have the walls of physics department, the walls of chemistry. So we can go across these walls. And this here is easy. We decide ourselves. You know, it's a small group. So this is the agility of the place. When I established the Institute of Complex Systems, also we went in this direction. And now here we can go one step further, because this, after all, is a national institution. So the idea was to go into those problems that are not perfectly represented by the standard disciplines. Which are these problems? These are the most interesting problems of science and society today. For example, take artificial intelligence. I mean, everybody talks about what is it? Is mathematics, physics, chemistry, or medicine, for example. So it's a little bit of everything. So we should have an identity, and we can find our soul into this sort of transverse new problems of present society. We also want to go close to society. So we, as much as possible, we want that our stuff is immediately usable, hopefully, as you see with the Sony collaboration, this is quite visible. And this we are pushing also in another direction. So together with our collaborators, we have developed a new method to analyze economics, which is called economic fitness and complexity. And this method is also part of the collaboration with Sony, but it has been strongly supported by the World Bank of Washington. So we will have a similar meeting, hopefully in a couple of months, with the World Bank of Washington, which will establish a think tank here in the Fermi Center in collaboration. So these are the things I'm really proud and thank everybody who has participated. And I think they give an identity to the place for problems which are interesting, important, and moreover fun. We want to enjoy and, you know, be happy with the beautiful questions. So in the end, what else can I say? Well, also the European Commission has adopted our methodology, and I don't know whether we can do something together, but certainly this is something we will push a lot. So I hope this is the first meeting of this type of collaboration, either with the company or with other institutions like the World Bank or the European Commission, and I hope to see you again here, and thanks again for coming here today. Thank you.
Thank you, President. And now the next speaker will be Ambassador Tsukasa Hirota, Deputy Head of Mission, Japanese Embassy in Italy.
Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm so much excited to be here, and it is a very great honor. And hearing all of the very interesting introductions, I have a lot of the things to talk with you, but I think that I believe it's better to make my remarks a little bit shorter, and I try to read it and using in Italian languages. So, gentili ospiti, signore and signori. Consentitemi innanzitutto di ringraziare il professor Vittorio Lorento per avermi inviato a partecipare a un'iniziativa di così grande rilevanza. È per me un onore essere qui con voi oggi. I laboratori di ricerca di Sony impiantato in Giappone, così come a Parigi, hanno già fornito preziosi contributi dall'altissimo valore scientifico. Ad essi si aggiunge oggi il laboratorio di Roma, nella bellissima cornice del centro di ricerca Enrico Fermi, in questo storico palazzo, nuovo simbolo della scienza e dell'innovazione che ha fin dagli anni 30 accolto le idee di giovani brillanti scienziati. L'inaugurazione del Sony CSL di Roma rappresenta una sfida ma soprattutto una grande opportunità, incubatore di scienza, tecnologie all'avanguardia. Pensiamo per esempio all'intelligenza artificiale e idea innovativa. Il laboratorio apporterà un fondamentale contributo innovativo allo sviluppo sostenibile e fornirà soluzioni avanzate utili all'economia e all'ambiente. In questi 2 anni di pandemia, la tecnologia e innovazione ci hanno consentito non solamente di poter continuare a lavorare e portare avanti le nostre attività, seppure con difficoltà e fatica, ma anche di mantenere un contatto umano con i nostri cari, anche nei momenti più bui e duri. Mai come oggi, siamo dunque consci di quanto città sostenibili, salute, ambiente e sviluppo inclusivo siano la chiave per la costruzione di una società futura a misura di essere umano, democratica e pacifica. Auguro dunque al professore Lorento e a tutti gli scienziati che qui potranno portare avanti le proprie ricerche un grande successo che sono certo non tarderà ad arrivare. Grazie mille. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador su Casa Hirota, and he was the minister. The next speaker was Minister of MUR, Italian Minister of University and Research, when CREF was born. He saw the birth of this place and its various projects. I'm honored to introduce you Lorenzo Fioramonti, member of the Italian Parliament.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll speak in English. I think, just as a courtesy towards our foreign guests. And I'd like to congratulate Vittorio, the CSL team in Rome, Luciano Pietronero, the whole staff at CREF. I think this is a great achievement. And it goes very well in the direction that I was hoping CREF would take when we started. At the beginning, when Professor Pietronero and I discussed what to do with this place, because of its history, because of its image, because of its reputation, because of what it means for the city of Rome, the idea was that it needs to be relevant. We don't want another museum. We have enough museums in this city. We do need something which is practical, that can help, especially those that want to make Rome a better place, become a better place. And as a policymaker, I can tell you that we desperately need ideas. We desperately need tools. I sat for 2 years in cabinet. And you may not be surprised to know that a lot of our leaders in the world often take initiatives and policies based on their intuition. In a complex world faced with issues like climate change, we see the effects of droughts right now in Italy, issues around security, migration, inequalities, you name it. This is a complex world that we are trying to deal with tools that my kids would find naive. And even sitting in cabinet, I realized that often policy leaders simply decide to deal with these challenges by following their own instinct. And we do need tools, we do need methods, we do need data. We often talk about complexity these days, but how do we deal with complexity? We deal with it in words, but do we really know how to deal successfully with complexity without using tools, without using technology? So what I see coming out of this Sony CSL initiative is exactly this. It's equipping society, equipping academia, equipping scientists, but also policymakers, with whether it's the mayor of Rome, whether it's a local leader, whether it's a local representative, or the national government or international institutions, with tools that can enable us to make a difference. Building a sustainable city is not easy. You can tell. I mean, my friends from Rome's administration will probably, we see this every day. Creating even a successful, sustainable company is very hard. I'm sure that our friends at Sony probably struggle with that every single day. We do need better tools. And what Sony CSL will be doing here, whether it's in the field of agribusiness, sustainable food systems, sustainable cities, whether it's in the field of people-driven, people-centered technology and artificial intelligence. This is, Vittorio, I think, a very important issue. How do we make sure, as you've said, that we don't work for technology, but technology works for us? Well, all these things happen in projects like this. So I'd like to conclude this reflection by saying this is a great example of industry-academia collaboration. It's a very good example of public-private partnership. It's a good example of creativity and transdisciplinarity. This is a bunch of physicists talking about arts, talking about society. I'm really very happy to hear this. 20 years ago, a physicist talking about sociology and talking about society would have been seen as someone committing a crime. I mean, you're a physicist, you only talk about physics. You don't care about what happens to society. I mean, we also think about what happened to Enrico Fermi's personal life, you know, having to take decisions that had such a big impact on people's lives and having probably not had all the tools and the instruments to understand what are the implications of your knowledge and your research. Nowadays, we need more people like you, physicists that are interested in societal issues, sociologists that are interested in technologies, and companies that want to make a difference and want to work hand in glove with academic institutions to make a difference. And those like us, the public administrators, have to learn how to use these methods. We cannot afford to have governments that are not equipped with all the tools indispensable to make sure that the next pandemic is going to be dealt with successfully or even prevented. That climate change becomes a serious issue for everyone, not only after the drought happens, but before, to make sure it doesn't happen, it doesn't impact our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorenzo Fioramonti. And as I said before, the City of Rome believed in this project and decided to host it in this important building, which is the headquarters of a central institution for the city. The next guest will be a representative of the city institution, and it's my pleasure to introduce you Monica Lucarelli, Rome Municipality Councillor for the Productive Activities and Equal Opportunities.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a very great pleasure to be here, and I bring you the greetings of our mayor, Roberto Gualtieri. And it's very impressive to hear you and the vision you have, and we are really happy that you decided to base this new research center here in Rome. Nowadays, Rome is changing its skin. The change is happening, and it's focusing in the area of technological development. Why should we focus on this vocation? Why in Rome? Because it's through research and innovation that this administration aims to revitalize the economic ecosystem of the city. I don't need to explain to you which can be the impact of this change. We believe that Rome can exploit this transition for creating new businesses, new experimentations, new services, new jobs, and the new wealth for the city. Furthermore, innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship are central to face one of this country's main issues: the mismatch between the research and the business worlds. It is no longer acceptable that Rome, as the city with the highest number of universities and students in Europe, is still experiencing this incongruity. Therefore, it is essential to reconnect and support the technological transfer between academia and corporates. From the very beginning, a student should be able to advance his or her career within the university walls, but at the same time, he or she should be able to develop the idea and synergy with the productive sector. The collaboration among different players is the key for the creation of value for all actors involved and for the city first and foremost. I also have the honor of holding the Equal Opportunity delegation, and this venue is perfect to emphasize how crucial it is to include women in this process. Therefore, Rome imagines relaunching itself by supporting projects such as Sony CSL. On our side, we are proud to support and host in the universities of our city fundamental projects such as Rome Tech, recently signed by Lazio region, main universities, several corporates, and innovative small and medium enterprises. This innovative development through the House of, we are directly launching this innovative development through the House of Emerging Technologies. And there will be also new spaces to come, all places where we can connect the academic and the research world with companies, such as innovation hubs focusing on sustainability items and smart cities. And it is precisely from this point that I want to launch a proposal. All these places must be interconnected. We need to start contamination actions, such as augmented creativity mentioned by Vittorio. We need to start, we imagine Rome as a city where research and innovation are central, widespread, and interconnected. In few words, the city model that we envision is a place where sustainable development is created thanks to a harmonized relationship with administration, research, and corporates, with important collaboration between public and private. We can't wait to face with you and strongly collaborate. Thank you all.
Thank you to you. And the public-private relationship was fundamental to carry out this kind of project. So we will listen to the contribution of an important player for our ecosystem to carry out other similar projects in the next future. And in fact, as Vittorio has already said, this project was presented at the last Maker Faire in Rome in October 2021. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Lorenzo Tagliavanti, President Chamber of Commerce of Rome.
Buonasera a tutti. Per prima cosa un ringraziamento agli amici della Sony per l'invito, per questa bella iniziativa. Oggi nasce una cosa nuova a Roma e la prima cosa che noi dobbiamo fare è fare gli auguri a questa iniziativa. Perché dobbiamo fare gli auguri? Non soltanto perché questa premia, permettetemelo di dire, la determinazione di Vittorio Loreto, che parlavamo 3 anni fa della possibilità di portare qui a Roma questa bellissima esperienza della Sony, una grande multinazionale globale che sta facendo tanto bene non soltanto in Giappone ma anche in Europa. Quindi noi guardavamo con una certa invidia gli amici francesi che avevano l'opportunità di avere un'azienda che in modo così disinteressato e in modo così efficace operava all'interno della loro città, e quindi noi dicevamo chissà, forse riusciremo a creare le condizioni per portarla a Roma. Oggi questo è stato reso possibile, quindi è una buona giornata oggi. Sicuramente noi abbiamo di fronte, mai come in questo momento, un futuro incerto. Va a dire nulla è come prima. Tutto si muove molto rapidamente. Nessuno può dire la mia esperienza è in grado di poter fare le scelte giuste. Ho tutti gli elementi per comprendere quello che si deve fare. Lo stesso ruolo delle città sta cambiando, non sono più quelle che erano in passato, ma oggi possono essere anche una cosa molto diversa e possono dare un contributo, diciamo, allo sviluppo dell'umanità completamente nuove. La stessa cosa accade per l'economia, la stessa cosa accade per il modo con cui gli uomini si relazionano. In questo momento la politica non può dire sappiamo tutto e sappiamo quali sono le cose che abbiamo da fare, ma la stessa cosa lo possiamo dire per l'industria, la stessa cosa lo possiamo dire anche per il mondo della ricerca. Nessuno da solo è in grado di costruire il futuro. Per certi versi non siamo neanche in grado di attenuare i pericoli del presente. Quindi siamo tutti condannati ad una cosa, a essere più curiosi, a collaborare, andare oltre i nostri confini e andare oltre le nostre certezze. Ovviamente questo chiunque nel mondo lo deve fare, ma le città hanno una responsabilità maggiore, soprattutto le città che hanno una storia, e Roma ha una grande storia. Io voglio ricordare che la nostra è una città che ha 2700 anni ed è morta e risorta tante volte. E tutte le volte è stata in grado di dire qualcosa, non solo a Roma, agli italiani, ma al mondo stesso. Quindi chiunque ha una visione globale che cerca di migliorare non solo il nostro presente, ma di immaginare il nostro futuro, qui a Roma è di casa, è un romano, è uno dei nostri, deve lavorare con noi. Allora, per questo, secondo me, da oggi gli amici della Sony sono romani anche loro, nel senso se stanno qui nella nostra città, saranno uno degli elementi di sviluppo della nostra città. Guardate, Roma ha tanti difetti, però permettetemi di dire uno dei grandi pregi di Roma. Roma è accogliente, abbiamo sempre accolto tutti. Diciamo, siamo sempre stati una delle città più accoglienti al mondo. Poi magari a chi abbiamo accolto non gli abbiamo dato sempre i servizi, le aspettative, eccetera. Però sul terreno dell'accoglienza è importante. Questo deve avvenire per le persone, ma deve avvenire anche per quelli che credono a Roma. Il fatto che la Sony abbia scelto Roma è una buona notizia per Roma, perché io spero che questa coraggiosa scelta sia anche una scelta che magari anche altre aziende possano scegliere su Roma. Ovviamente non possiamo solo sperare questo, lo dobbiamo costruire. La Camera di Commercio, ma vedo qui gli amici della Regione, gli amici del Comune, gli amici del Parlamento, dipende anche da noi italiani a rendere appetibili, diciamo, la nostra città e renderla quindi non solo accogliente ma anche efficiente. Quindi da questo punto di vista oggi questo seme importante che tra l'altro mettiamo in un contesto importantissimo, quello dei ragazzi di Via Panisperma, già qui Roma e l'Italia ha parlato al mondo, no? Grazie ad un gruppo di giovani, allora giovani e di grandi scienziati, quindi Roma l'ha fatto e lo può continuare a fare. Quindi con questo augurio faccio veramente un augurio di cuore a questo esperimento e veramente un ringraziamento anche questo di cuore agli amici della Sony. Grazie.
Thank you, Mr. Tagliavanti. And the next guest deals with the European Stars project, and he will explain the future links with the Sony CSL Rome. It's my pleasure to introduce you, Ralph Doom, EU Commission Stars program.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I guess we have a very long history with Luciano Pietronero, il presidente dell'Istituto Enrico Fermi, and with Vittorio Loreto, whom we learned, or as I knew already, is one of the most prominent PhD students of Luciano. We have this history in interdisciplinary research, which used to be in Europe a very complicated thing to do. As Luciano correctly pointed out, we have to deal with the kingdoms of university departments to bring them together. But I guess we managed, and we managed to bring physics into economics. We managed to bring physics into sustainable development. So we managed to bring this interdisciplinary thinking into European research, but also into national research funding programs. As Luciano also correctly pointed out, it has always been very important also for science to be driven by industry. If you think of thermodynamics, which I always consider as one of the most beautiful theories in physics, it was driven by a very concrete idea, namely how can you make steam engines efficient? And now we have this problem of sustainability, which is one of the biggest problems we face. And here, as we have heard last year, complexity plays a role, and complexity, Giorgio Parisi got the Nobel Prize, a physicist who has been working all his life on very fundamental and abstract ideas on complexity, but people start to understand how there is this link between sustainability and complexity. Now, what we did in the Commission, we went one step further. If there is these kingdoms of disciplines in science, I think there is the religions of art versus science that we have in Europe. People working in art think about art as a separate space, and people working in science think about science as a separate space, almost in a religious way. So it's very difficult to bring these two very different ways of thinking together. And we tried exactly to do that with was already introduced with the STARTS program, which is essentially a program which brings together the arts and engineers, mainly in digital, in order to achieve something which we call art-driven innovation. So to create a feedback loop between science thinking, technology thinking, and art thinking. That is, I think, a very important aspect for the digital age. If artists work with digital, of course, the idea is that they help engineers find new ways of thinking, but on the other hand, also to create artworks, and because this is what artists do, right? And but then, if you create these artworks, and we have, for example, artworks that were created in the last STARTS programs that will be exhibited in autumn here at the Maxi Museum in Rome, these artworks also then should be used as a way to reflect on how digital changes via these artworks. So this is really this feedback loop that we try to manage via the STARTS program. Now, I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about Florence in Rome, but if you go back to Renaissance, it was a very interesting mixture of different ingredients we had there. We had on the one hand artists, scientists, business people. We have also, and this we all know is very important, financiers like the Medicis. And this mixture of these different things brought together, these different ingredients, brought about what I would call is a very important aspect of Italy, and still is, the Renaissance movement. Now, what we're trying to do with STARTS in a new project that we developed together with the European Parliament is the so-called STARTS regional centers. It would be a bit too ambitious to say this is reinventing Renaissance, but the idea is that in these STARTS regional centers, we bring together artists, scientists, engineers, and also foundations in order to think about sustainable development on the regional level. And I think this is a very important aspect. It goes back to what I said earlier. Science is driven by challenges, and these challenges we face today is sustainability. And so have this Renaissance thinking, this bringing together, this nurturing between different ways of thinking on a regional level, I think is very important. And this is why we have these STARTS regional centers that we will fund in the next couple of years, and where we already started. Now, if I see Kitano-san, he mentioned that the reason why Sony CSL is here in Rome is in particular because Rome is culture-driven, and he wanted these links between European culture and engineering and sustainable development. This is what I think is something which distinguishes us from China and US, this idea that innovation should be culture and value-driven. And this is something we also put forward in now a new STARTS program that is STARTS International, where we try to bring this thinking outside Europe as an opposition to this idea of the dominant idea we have these days of innovation that is driven by the way Chinese and Americans do it. So I think it is always crucial to bring these different skills together, and I think centers like Sony CSL are perfectly placed to do so. We worked already with Sony CSL in Paris, but I think Sony CSL in Rome will be even more important because it really focuses on these UN sustainability goals that we think are very important to put forward. Let me make a last remark. The link that I see between STARTS and Bauhaus, because Bauhaus, the 20th century Bauhaus, has always been a guide for me in developing STARTS, and as you know, in the European Commission, the President, Ursula von der Leyen, has now launched a new European Bauhaus, which is the idea of bringing the arts and engineering together for sustainable development. And I think this is a very important aspect, and I think, again, here we see a lot of links between what Sony CSL is doing here in Rome and what we want to do in the Commission. The Bauhaus explored how new technologies change our lives. The industrial age changed our life beginning of the 20th century, and I think how the digital changes our lives in the beginning of the 21st century. So the new European Bauhaus is certainly digital-driven, but the important ingredient will always be the arts. I think I stop here and just want to emphasize again how I see a lot of synergies between what you are doing here in Rome and what we are trying to do, on the one hand in STARTS, on the other hand with the new European Bauhaus in the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Doom. And the next guest concludes the institutional speeches session on this afternoon and show the interest on this territory for the new Sony CSL Rome project. I'm honored to introduce you Paolo Ornelli, Counselor for Economic Development, Commerce and Handicraft, University, Research, Startup and Innovation of Lazio Region.
Buonasera a tutte e a tutti. Porto il saluto del Presidente della Regione Lazio, Nicola Zingaretti. È molto emozionante essere qui, in questo luogo che descrive bene il valore delle radici della ricerca italiana, ed è anche un grandissimo piacere accogliere, salutare, ringraziare Sony, che ha scelto di aprire qui a Roma e qui in questo luogo questo centro di ricerca, una scelta nata nei mesi passati, che oggi diventa ufficiale, ed è un'ottima notizia per Roma e un'ottima notizia per il nostro paese. Una grande multinazionale globale come Sony riconosca l'Italia, riconosca questa città come un luogo straordinariamente ricco di talento, di talenti, e decida di aprire qui. Io penso che oggi noi abbiamo una delle chiavi di cui abbiamo bisogno per progettare un futuro migliore. La Regione Lazio c'è. Noi abbiamo incontrato nei giorni scorsi Vittorio Loreto e siamo già al lavoro per tante ipotesi di rapporti di collaborazione. Noi dobbiamo insistere. Il progetto di Sony trova molti punti di convergenza con la strategia che stiamo mettendo in campo per uscire dal Covid, per avviare la nuova programmazione, i grandi investimenti del PNRR. Il nostro principale punto di forza sono le persone che stanno in questa sala, sono le ricercatrici e i ricercatori, la scienza e questo straordinario patrimonio che non sempre è riuscito a stare dentro il nostro paese come un vero e proprio ecosistema e non sempre è riuscito a vincere la sfida del collegamento strategico tra industria, impresa, conoscenza, scienza, per provare a generare qualcosa di nuovo. La novità è che però in realtà questo sta già accadendo. Abbiamo vinto la sfida del Covid grazie alla scienza è cresciuto in questi anni un ecosistema dell'innovazione a Roma e nel Lazio. Ha detto l'assessora allo sviluppo economico del Comune di Roma del Rome Technopole. Il Rome Technopole è un progetto molto importante che dialoga in modo totalmente naturale con un colosso multinazionale come Sony. Cosa sarà il Rome Technopole? Il Rome Technopole è intanto un progetto che nasce da 7 università pubbliche, 4 centri di ricerca nazionali di livello internazionale, 20 imprese anche di tipo multinazionali, PMI, istituzioni pubbliche, camere di commercio, c'è l'ecosistema che si mette insieme per fare che cosa? Per fare un centro di ricerca e di alta formazione politecnica che possa farci fare un salto di qualità per affrontare le sfide tecnologiche più rilevanti del nostro tempo, sulla salute, sulla transizione digitale, sulla transizione ecologica. E non è l'unico progetto. Come sanno le ricercatrici e i ricercatori in questa sala, noi abbiamo varato, unica regione in Italia, una misura strategica per rafforzare e, diciamo, pagare di più le ricercatrici e i ricercatori, perché il primo punto che noi dobbiamo garantire è non solo che non vadano via i cervelli, ma che noi possiamo attrarre nuovi cervelli, nuovi talenti, nuovi investitori come Sony, tanti altri che possano decidere di venire a investire, ad aprire centri di ricerca, imprese nella nostra città, ed è una misura strategica, non è una misura una tantum che si fa durante la pandemia, che ci accompagnerà nei prossimi 7 anni. Nelle prossime settimane partiranno già i bandi della nuova programmazione europea, bandi interessanti di cui anche con Vittorio Loreto abbiamo parlato qualche giorno fa, che saranno di sicuro interesse anche per il centro di ricerca Enrico Fermi, per il CNRR, per le università, un investimento senza precedenti sulle infrastrutture aperte di ricerca per la Regione Lazio, raddoppiando le risorse del precedente ciclo di programmazione, perché luoghi come questo, dove già si incontrano università, ricerca pubblica, luoghi della scienza e grandi imprese, possano anche diventare luoghi dove una parte del tempo venga messo a disposizione di chi non può accedere da solo alla conoscenza, perché la sfida è il trasferimento tecnologico, ma è anche il trasferimento della conoscenza. Se vogliamo davvero cambiare, se vogliamo davvero costruire un nuovo modello di sviluppo più sostenibile, più inclusivo, più capace di rispondere alle sfide complesse del nostro tempo. E ancora, qui in questa sala ci sono sicuramente, perché ho visto che già in questo centro di ricerca che apre Sony ci sono ricercatori che hanno vinto il bando dei dottorati industriali che noi facciamo e che pubblicheremo anche nelle prossime settimane, per insistere come un'ossessione, cioè a moltiplicare le opportunità per connettere sempre di più mondo delle università, mondo dell'industria, per passare dalla descrizione di un territorio straordinariamente ricco di talento, di cervelli, di tante cose bellissime che accadono, a un vero e proprio ecosistema connesso. E noi ci vogliamo essere. Mi piacerebbe nei prossimi mesi firmare con Sony un vero e proprio accordo di collaborazione, perché i temi di questo centro di ricerca sono temi che stanno dentro la Smart Specialization Strategy della Regione Lazio. Le sfide tecnologiche che si intendono affrontare qui sono le stesse che vogliamo affrontare noi con la nuova programmazione, e il mio messaggio è continuiamo su questa strada, soprattutto continuate su questa strada. Noi dobbiamo fare solo il nostro dovere, programmare bene gli investimenti che insomma sono molto rilevanti in questa fase, accompagnare le riforme di cui questo Paese ha bisogno in modo assoluto per diventare sempre di più un Paese che riesca ad attrarre nuovi investimenti, ad attrarre talenti, ad attrarre opportunità, ma soprattutto dare valore e dare centralità alla scienza, alla conoscenza, al talento delle persone, delle donne e degli uomini, per partire da qui e costruire un futuro migliore per tutti e per tutti. Quindi davvero auguri e buon lavoro.
Thanks, Mr. Ornelli, for the contribution and the interesting ideas you shared. And I thank all the institutional guests who took part in this first presentation of the Sony CSL Rome project. And now, as Vittorio mentioned in his presentation, the new laboratory in Rome focuses on 3 main research areas. There are InfoSphere, aiming to redesign. So I thank you, all of you speakers, yes, and then we changed the speakers at the table, at the presidential table. Thank you to you, Vittorio, and to Furumi-san, thank you to you, and to President Pietro Nero. And so, as I said before, the 3 main research areas are InfoSphere, aiming to redesign information technology to make information more accessible and online social dialogue more transparent, understandable and healthy. Sustainable cities, aiming to develop new tools for understanding urban environments and creating predictive scenarios to make them more sustainable, to improve living conditions of its citizens. And augmented creativity, exploring how AI can grasp the complexity of open-ended systems, support creativity in the arts, and help people find original, brilliant, innovative, and practical solutions. Now it's time for each dialogue on the 3 research areas that will last 10 minutes. The first dialogue will be on sustainable cities topic, and it will play between Mr. Bernardo Monecchi, researcher at Sony CSL and co-principal investigator for sustainability research, line at Sony CSL Rome, and Luca Montuori, urban planning professor at Roma Tre University. I therefore invite the 2 speakers to sit at the table. You are welcome. Welcome to Luca Montuori and Bernardo Monecchi. And I will do the same thing, with the next 2 for the next one's dialogues. So you can start your dialogue, and I leave you the stage, the virtual stage.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. So, well, it is really hard to add something up to this point concerning the topic of sustainable cities. It has already been stressed how they are important in modern nations. Cities are the place in which innovation occurs, are the place in which new technologies are born, in which new societal things happen and then spread to the other part of the nations. And so they are the centers in which the new crisis that we are going to face needs to be addressed. Cities, just like us, lives in a state of constant crisis. We've just experienced the COVID-19 crisis, after another crisis in 2008, and then a war crisis which will lead eventually to another economic crisis. And if you think that we can already foresee that other things are going to happen, so we will have problems with climate, the lack of water, and the only way in which we can address these issues in an efficient manner is with knowledge, science, and technology. And when I say knowledge, science, and technology, I mean that there is something which is very much needed to start the whole process, which is data. Data is at the core of every scientific advancement, and it's lacking most of the time in cities. Data, of course, by itself, it's not enough. It's missing. Sometimes you don't have it. You cannot really understand what's going on in certain cities. For example, how the way in which people move within cities has changed after COVID-19. In many cases, we know. In many others, we don't. But of course, that is not enough. Data has to be processed. You need ways to process data, to extract value, information from data, and to make forecasts out of it, to steer the way in which cities should be designed in the future. And there are many examples, successful examples, in which this virtuous process of getting data, extracting information, and then informing public decision has already been applied. My, well, I can say colleague here, Luca Montuori, has a lot of them to explain to you today. So I'll leave the word to him for a while. Yeah.
Thank you Bernardo, thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today. It's about 2 years ago I was here with Luciano Pietronero and some of his researchers to discuss how the idea of a research center in the city of Rome could be very important, even to plan the city. And we discussed a lot with Vittorio Reto and with Bernardo in the past, how we could deal making the data and the description of the city part of the planning of the city. Because, you know, cities go through crisis. They change very slowly. We used to discuss about resilient cities, so how they don't change, let's say, in crisis. But now with data, we have a lot of things and elements to deal with, to change cities and to plan cities in a different ways. So we have to deal with this complexity and high-speed transformations, and on the other part, with the instruments that are slow. So we have to deal through strategies and plans. That is not so evident for us. So as urbanists, we deal with laws, with very boring elements. And on the other part, we are really interested in how description and narration of cities, because these are two elements that are very important, because data not only can describe cities in an objective way, they can narrate how cities are really living. So it's more in a subjective way. For example, we discussed about an example in Barcelona. In Barcelona, the municipality is dealing with data and making co-projects with the IoT elements with citizens, so dealing with behaviors of citizens. And this switch from a static representation of a city that is typical from urban plans to that dynamic representation of cities. And this is what Sony Lab and, of course, a lot of researchers can help in order to switch from an old determinist, let's say, view of the city to a new dynamic and strategic view of the city.
Yes, you also mentioned at some point that what this kind of approach that we at Sony CSL are capable of doing can help to bring to light a lot of virtuous systems that are already in the city but are not known. For example, I do remember that you mentioned some ecosystems of economic activities that are actually hidden, that are excellent centers, but you just don't know they're there.
Yes, as some speakers said before, we are not sure about nothing today. So I think that policies for the city had to be able to build the infrastructure to let things happen. So we have a strong informal life in the city that is not illegal. Let's say informal. Is a way to stay in the city, very important. And we can't plan everything in the city. It's important to have the infrastructure to let all this ecosystem live, to bring them to light. In the last years in Rome, we discussed about ecosystem for agri-food, for example, with the Camera di Commercio, or even the Technopole that today arrived to a formal definition, started discussing with the universities about a new pole in Rome to bring all these elements together to let these ecosystems live, not in a static, let's say, adding new laws, new schemes, and new elements, but bringing really infrastructures through data and strategic views exactly to go in this direction.
Yes, and what I'd like to stress here as a conclusion of our very brief dialogue is that I think that Sony CSL has all the capabilities to be a relevant actor in this change that's going to happen in the future. When I say relevant actor, I mean that we have the capabilities not just to generate data with this important IMX 500 POC that has already been mentioned, which can get a lot of information on what's going on, but also to process the data and extract value from it. So we just don't collect it, we understand it, we provide relevant information, and moreover, we can make forecasts and help decision makers to design new scenarios for the future. We have a very interesting platform, 15-Minute City platform. It's a very hot topic nowadays that help you in this direction. So you can see what's going on there from the data that we have. You can understand what's going on, and then you can design something new from your ideas. And what we do is help you understand the impact of what you want to do with the city. So as a last remark, I really like the idea here at Sony CSL Rome that we try to be part of a larger ecosystem of public administrations, of enterprises, of universities that go in this direction to have an impact with data science, with data processing, and with sustainable cities in general. So I guess that's it.
Yes, I think that's it. Just a last remark. What is very important for cities is to be able to deal with data, and not only to receive from different institutions data, but even to be owners of data and provide data to people who analyze to address policies. Otherwise, we receive policies from private sector, and of course, this is not the case of Sony, but we have to be able to deal with all this structure and to address exactly in the direction that strategists and policymakers want to go for the future of the cities. This is very important, and this is what we should discuss, even, I think, in the city for the future.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Bernardo Monecchi and to Mr. Luca Montuori. And I introduce and invite the next two speakers on the table for the second dialogue that will be on infosphere topic. And it will be played between Mr. Pietro Gravino, researcher at Sony CSL and co-principal investigator for the infosphere research line at Sony CSL Rome. Welcome. And Mr. Marco Del Mastro, social scientist, author of several books and scientific publications, currently at CREF and Ca' Foscari University, and he also member of IRIS Academic Research Group.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for my voice. I lost it, and the party is not even started yet. So, what is the infosphere? The infosphere can be defined as the metaphysical realm of information, data, knowledge, communications, and expressions in general. This realm is the habitat of our ideas and beliefs, and it dramatically evolved in the last decades because of the information technologies explosion, and it is of paramount importance to understand this change because our actions and our decision-making processes project the infosphere into our reality. The phenomenology of the infosphere is vast and complex, but we focus on some very strategic aspects. In particular, we focus on the general dynamics of information. We look at the dynamic of information as a market where you have supply of news, demand of news, and the process of diffusion. And what we are trying to do is to assess the status of health of all these information flows. Then we look also at the evolution of the public discourse. We look at the rise, competition, and fall of narratives and all the underlying values and identities that guide the development of our societies. Then, of course, we look also at the emotional level. So through the emotional analysis, we try to understand how people react to these narratives and what kind of emotions are triggered and expressed in the information dynamics online. This leads us also to analyze one of the major threats to the social cohesion nowadays, which is the polarization and the sterile disagreement, the hate speech, because it's crucial to understand the internal structure of polarization, how it works, and most importantly, what triggers polarization. On the other hand, there's also how to rebuild trust, which is one of the main weapons we have to fight polarization. So we track the trust flows, how we trust news sources, how we trust news outlets, and what makes a news source trusted even by very opposite factions, for example. And at the end of all this, there's also an effort to understand how the mechanisms that drive our exploration of infosphere, the so-called recommender system, are able to influence our opinion, how they change our perception of the world, and how we can design better systems that can have a positive impact, leading us to go outside of our comfort zone.
So thank you for the invitation. I'm a sort of guest because I'm a social scientist doing a sabbatical here with hard scientists. So it's very difficult to talk about infosphere because there are lots of common sense, and we always talk about fake news every day, and so I will, in a few minutes, I will say 5 concepts. The first one is I would prefer to use the concept of public sphere as a social scientist, which is a construct of the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas, which was a great researcher. And in his view, I mean, the public sphere is a sort of place, also a virtual place where we share views, we discuss, we have information and news, and sometimes we emerge with common and shared views, okay? And as a second concept, as Pietro said, this public sphere has changed a lot in the last few decades. So in the 70s and 60s, we had a sort of top-down situation in which traditional stakeholders, such as traditional publisher, diffuse information and news and opinions, okay? Now, of course, we have not a bottom-up system because these are really a fake idea, but we have a nodal system, okay? In which this system is governed by rules and codes, internal rules and codes, sometimes we call a recommendation system, ranking and targeting algorithm, and all this stuff. And so this is so true that the European Commission this year has introduced 2 pieces of regulation, and it identifies some of the largest online platform as the gatekeepers for both the digital markets and the public sphere. As a counteract, there is a declining role of traditional stakeholders, and especially traditional publishers, so with a waning reputation, and they are also struggling to find new business models. So we have a new ecosystem, we have public sphere, and it's not new that we have different opposing opinions. What is new that we are lacking of mechanisms that try to find shared views. This, for me, is the real point. There is no one mechanism that makes all these different opinions converge to a shared view. And this is a big problem. And sometimes we call this situation a post-truth, but in reality, I mean, this is a quotation from the philosopher Yuval Noah Harari, say that this is the era of post-truth, when exactly was the Alchian age of truth? And of course, there is no. The idea is that what triggered the new situation was this movement through a new public sphere. So, and with this, of course, we have also what we call the infodemic. So, well, infodemic is, I mean, it's a new term that means a rapid, far-reaching spread of both accurate and inaccurate information and news. And these, as economists, remind me a very old financial law from a merchant, English merchant of the 16th century, which was Sir Thomas Gresham. And Sir Thomas Gresham talking about the financial system, said that many times the bad money drive out good money. And it seems to me that sometimes in our new public sphere, the low quality information is to drive out the good quality information. And probably this is why we are doing all this. We are having an event for a new technological laboratory.
Yes, but if on one side we do a lot on the research side, and that's amazing, but it's not enough. We need to bring these results, these technologies into the real world to have an actual impact. So that's why we started another initiative. That is the Lab for News initiative. It's another public-private collaboration between Sony CSL and Centro Fermi. And the idea is exactly to bring the research out of the lab. So in which way? We want to engage the communities involved in the infosphere. So journalists, editor, but not just them, also authorities, institutions, organizations, NGOs, all the main actors in order to develop together, design together research and development activities that could lead also to new business opportunity for them. So on one hand, the idea is to make all the recent technologies available to them. We have had incredible advances in artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, opinion dynamics, data science, complex system. And we want to make all of this available to all these actors in order to put them in position to make their own innovation. On the other hand, we also want to learn from them. The idea is to learn from the people on the battlefield of information, which are the open issues, which are the possible research line, the most important questions to be answered, in order to really define together these paths of research and development. Some example could be the creation of new tools to exploit the information quality, to give back value to information quality, while at the same time improving the experience of the readers. In this sense, it has to be a win-win. You have to do something that is better for the information, but it's also good for business, otherwise it won't be sustainable. But also what we would like to do is to provide a scientifically validated tool for policymaking. Many times policymakers do not have the tools to define regulations for some areas, some sectors. So the idea is to work together with them to support their regulatory efforts.
Yeah, and this is especially important also because, I mean, we have to think that the news media sector is quite a low-tech sector, I mean, historically. I mean, I mean, we still use the newspaper, which is a beautiful but very old product. And so, at the same time, we are in a situation in which we are just in the middle of what Joseph Schumpeter, the Austrian-born economist, said. We are in the gale of creative destruction. And so there is quite an increasing dependence of traditional stakeholders like publisher on technological innovation of online platforms. But they also compete with the online platform because, for instance, they compete on the online advertising market. And so there is this cooperation competitions in which is in some sense it's a bit dangerous. So I think that this is an initiative that, I mean, boosts innovation with a new institution which is both public and private, and it's a third party. It can be very, very important in this situation now, in this context, for the public sphere and for the news industry. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Pietro Gravino and to Mr. Marco Del Mastro. Thank you. And now I introduce and invite the last but not least speaker on the table for the last dialogue. That will be on augmented creativity topic, and it will be played between Mrs. Olga Kesseleva, artist and director of the Art and Science program at Sorbonne University. Welcome. And Mr. Alessandro Londei, researcher at Sony CSL and co-principal investigator for the augmented creativity research line at Sony CSL Rome.
Yeah, thank you for your kind introduction. Yeah, just before starting, I was thinking that me and Olga, who is sitting next to me, we are representing somehow the left and the right side of the brain. I am a scientist, she's an artist, and we suppose that we are very different each other. So I should be very rational, and she is supposed to be very emotionally creative. We are going to have this very short dialogue. And I want to try to say that maybe this is not really true. So let me just start. As Ralph Doom mentioned before, from more or less 1 year, we, Sony CSL, in collaboration with Maxi Museum in Rome, we started our work in the context of a START project, the European project START, which means science, technology, and arts. And this year edition is called Repairing the Present, so it's very focused on the relevant aspects of SDGs, the new European Bauhaus, and the European Green Deal. So after a very long competition, we selected 2 relevant artists who presented their proposals for our challenges. One of them concerns the big data used for the urban problems, and the artist is here in this room. It's Susi Gucce, who presented a splendid project concerning, it's called Trace Waste. So the mobility of garbage in the urban context, and in this case, in case of Rome, also out of urban context. So she is going to represent her final artwork, trying to explain to people what happens after they throw their garbage in the collection bin. And Olga Kisseleva is the second artist who won the competition. Her project is called Cities Live Like Trees. And so I just want to start from her project. So Olga, can you tell us, about your project and your vision of interaction between science and arts? Thank you. Oh, you have to turn the button on.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you to Stars and to Maxi and to Sony for the chance to be part of this team during this year. So what you see here, it is not the final work, but a kind of part of our research. Which is called City Live Like Trees. We started it is a very new project. We started this year with Sony Computer Lab. And here we work on the street syntax concept introduced by Hiller and based on the board's observation of psychogeographical patterns. By analyzing the mobility patterns of people living in the city and citizens' information about the city, the project allows to create prospective urban development maps. The open source tools visualize different parts of arborescent structure that city could follow. And the final program will not only produce beautiful images, but it should allow citizens to consider ways to optimize the city development by planting more trees. So let's leave it growing, and then you will see how it can be.
Yeah, actually the video was running in the background, is the representation of this concept by Olga. So let's start the main topic of that we decided to talk about with Olga, and which is, I mean, we all know that science and arts can collaborate. And historically, science often has been a very important tool for some new arts. I like to mention the effort by Bartolomeo Cristofori, who invented the first version of what he called fortepiano. And after that, it was built the piano. And at the end of the 17th century, after less than 1 century, the harpsichord, who was the leader in music before that, just disappeared. It was a terrific revolution for music and for creativity. Actually, we still use piano and no more harpsichord. So science, through technology, supported arts. But what about the opposite? It can be that arts can support science somehow. So this is the question we would like to explore a bit, very shortly. Olga, can you give us your opinion about that?
Yeah, of course. I know art and science relation is not only the 21st century invention. Leonardo da Vinci has already shown how can art advance scientific progress. His remarkable capacity for observation made him a brilliant artist and brilliant scientist. His portraits were groundbreaking because Leonardo was the first to show accurate musculature in the face and neck. He also noticed the difference between arteries carrying blood from the heart and the veins bringing the blood back. So, as a scientist, he drew the first accurate models of the human circulatory system. Beyond applying his artist perception capability to scientific topics, Leonardo took on artistic and engineering challenges that built on his knowledge of geology, hydrology, botany, and much more. But that integrative spirit inspired other legendary artist-scientists such as Albrecht Dürer, Louis Pasteur, or Buckminster Fuller. Some scientific discovery would never happen without art. Thus, in 16th century, it was the German artist Albrecht Dürer who created the theory of perspective. Louis Pasteur, my colleague from Sorbonne, was training in making portraits. It helped him to understand chirality, the mechanism by which molecules can take left-handed and right-handed forms. Some artistic production triggered a scientist or engineer to make a connection or think in a fresh way about the problem that they are working on. Einstein claimed that music underpinned his insights that lead to his theory of general relativity. Seeing an Escher prints of fish arranged in a gourd stimulated the chemist Adrian Simon to produce the first DNA-based nanotechnologies. So maybe let's stop here today. But there are still many stories describe how mirror paintings, Calder mobiles, or Stravinsky symphonies inspired 20th century researchers.
Yeah, thank you, Olga. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of very relevant persons who, okay, mainly they were artists, but they were connected with science at certain point, and they developed something more interesting, some new tools, some new devices for creating, for exploring, and the creativity for arts. But actually, I try to explore what is known about arts driving science. And actually, there's nothing. And in my opinion, it's quite straightforward because actually we are supposed to be rational. So how art could just give us some support? Maybe I can have some good mood if I listen to Mozart when I use my mathematical tools. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that. As a scientist, I know that the most relevant steps in science happen because of intuitions, because of insights or serendipity events. Usually, a scientist can imagine something, then maybe he can try to explore or to experiment this intuition. And then, or at the same time, he can try to formalize with mathematical tools what it imagined. So in my opinion, both artists and scientists are living the two phases of a coin. And the coin is creativity. So that's why in Sony CSL, we focused on what we call the augmented creativity. We, as Vittorio mentioned in the first part of his talk, we are not working on artificial intelligence in the mainstream, like, I don't know, other very important companies. Because, okay, I mean, we cannot compete with them, but we are trying to use our physical knowledge to explore something new. We are trying to follow some very weird paths for artificial intelligence. Why? Because we want to give the machine or the device or whatever the ability to explore a space of what is does not exist now, or what is new, what is a novelty, what is unexpected. And this is usually this is not included in an artificial intelligent device. Now we are developing some theories, some approaches to give these machines the ability to explore something new, something which is not, I mean, it's possible, but it's actually is not probable, as Vittorio said before. And I'm sure that this approach in future can have some very important impact, not only for arts, but also for exploring new themes, new solutions, new paths for approaching and solving, say, addressing the main SDGs from United Nations. So, Olga, I think you want to add something at the end, and maybe we can stop. Oh,
yes.
Please.
So we hope the place inaugurated today would help to restore this prominence to the power of the integrative thinking that Leonardo exemplified and which is developed today in the art and science field.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you to Mrs. Keseleva, and thank you to Alessandro Londei. And thanks to all the participants of this dialogue session who focused the research topics of the Sony CSL Rome, and I wish you good work. And now I have the pleasure of introducing 3 women with different roles in the world of universities and research who carry forward their passion for science and evolution in their professional career. I introduce you Maria Cara Carrozza, President of CNR. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for your introduction, and hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, so I thank you very much for inviting me to attend this inauguration. This is an important symbol for the city of Rome and for all institutions that are here in Rome performing research and also translational research. So I'm happy to say that CNR will support this activity, is open for collaboration, for improving collaboration about the different actors that are participating in these initiatives, very interdisciplinary. As pointed out by Professor Pietronero, we are very, very open to interdisciplinary research. We are now launching our reform plan. In a few days, it will be discussed and hopefully approved by our board of directors and also assessed by the government. So we will know if this reform plan will be launched. And this reform plan is based on a new scientific organization, based on a new interdisciplinary view of science and research. So I am happy to say that according to this new plan, we are very open to this kind of collaboration and interdisciplinary project. I think that borders in research must be overcome, and that we have to see and to look at new scientific problems and also to have new approaches based on different knowledge merged together. So I am here to say that we will continue to support, and we wait for your call. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Carrozza. And then I introduce you Maria Sabrina Sarto, Deputy Rector for the Research Sapienza University of Rome. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this beautiful event. I'm very glad to bring to you the greetings from our rector, Professor Antonella Polimeni, that unfortunately has not been able to be here today. This is a real opportunity, and it is in line with the collaboration that Sapienza University of Rome had been having during this period and this year from between the groups of Professor Loreto and the Department of Physics. And this is the opportunity to widen this collaboration and to connect to the initiatives that Sapienza is carrying out with the scope of strengthening collaborations between research, enterprise, and attract early career students and create new opportunities for our students to be in the condition to work in labs in collaboration with industries. Our territory, our region today suffer a little bit from difficulties in STEM areas to attract early career students, researchers, and new students. And therefore, this initiative, the opportunity to have a Sony CS Lab in Rome, goes toward the direction of attracting young people on some crucial topics that are the center of the strategic direction for research and innovation in our university and in our territory. This is well in line with also all initiatives related to the opportunity given to us by PNRR. As already mentioned by the region, the Roman Chancellor, we are working to the starting of the new Rome Technopole, which is well connected with the topics of this lab. Actually, the Rome Technopole has the scope of bringing together researcher, enterprise, student around an innovation ecosystem aimed to bring fundamental research toward applied research, industrial research, technology transfer, new enterprise, education, and the attraction of early career researcher. And therefore, the topic of digitalization that through this initiative is very multidisciplinary because is applied to the field of information, sustainability, and creativity, is really coherent with the direction that we are following within our university. And in particular, the topic of creation, I really wish to mention the connection with the regional district of cultural heritage, in which the hub on digitalization, digital technology, artificial intelligence applied toward the valorization and fruition of the cultural heritage in our region and in our city is a dominant topic. So I wish to conclude now, and I thank you again for inviting us to this open ceremony. I'm really confident that this is the first step to make stronger the collaboration between Sony Labs, our institution, Rome Technopole, and our city. Thank you very much again.
Thank you to you, Deputy Rector. And I may welcome to Daniela Buri, Deputy Rector for the Research Tor Vergata University.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is the last speech, so I have a tough job in front of me because I should say something has not been said yet, so it's difficult. First of all, let me thank Professor Loreto for inviting me to share some thoughts with you. What can I say about this project? It's definitely innovative, challenging, and very present day. It aims to combine science, arts, public engagement, and business with an eye to innovation towards the sustainability development goals. In collaboration with the Enrico Fermi Research Center, the Sony Computer Science Laboratories wants to address the issue of complexity, science, and artificial intelligence with a wide range of topics ranging from misinformation to urban sustainability. Sony's project is based on flexibility and multidisciplinarity. Both elements are really needed nowadays to face the sustainability challenges that wait for us in the near future. Sustainable development represents on a global level, and also for our country, one of the most important challenges of the years to come in the spirit of the United Nations 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. And the European Union is strongly committed to the implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda. In this context, our country is directing its efforts to promote actions aimed at sustainable development as well. And many of the interventions that have been included in the National Plan for Recovery go precisely in this direction. For example, with regard to the missions related to inclusion and cohesion, revolution green and ecological transitions, infrastructure for sustainable mobility. The university also have been called recently to contribute on this issue within the National Plan Mission for Education and Research Component 2, from research to business. However, the expected goals in terms of sustainable development cannot be achieved without generating a change of mindset in all citizens, orienting individual choices in the awareness that a drastic change is needed in the management of earth resources. So it's necessary to reorient everybody's habits through education and move individuals towards sustainability at all levels. This is the big challenge for our country system. With this in mind, So after all this big introduction, the topic of interest of the Sony Computer Science Laboratories perfectly meets the challenges we are called to face. In the past 2 years of pandemic, for example, we have realized the importance of accurate and rigorous information supported by scientific data, and we have learned that harmful misinformation can slow the progress of the progress of science and the dissemination of its results. At the same time, we have seen the importance of artificial intelligence in all fields, starting with the application for healthcare and health, but also in medical diagnostics, to continue with the automotive, GPS, and home automation. These mentioned are just two of the Sony Computer Science Laboratories topics of interest. So Sonic's goal is to provide new solutions and scenarios for the challenges of sustainable development, but at the same time, testing the potential impact of these scenarios in the current context, as Vittorio mentioned in his presentation. This moves us into a world in which the evaluation of the impact of policies represents a necessary step in designing new policies for policymakers. So innovation is the change, in other words, is the tool, while sustainability is the goal. Being sustainable today means being able to use innovation to inhabit a better world. Of course, the fact that Sony has taken up this challenge adds a great value to this project. And I really hope that my university will be part of this big project with students and researchers. So we really hope to start a collaboration and a fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution and to take part in this presentation. I thank all the guests, the authorities, local institutions, the Enrico Fermi Research Center that hosts this event, and obviously Sony and Sony CSL. To conclude this afternoon, I asked Vittorio Loreto, Director of Sony CSL Paris and now Rome, in order to have a final comment on the many ideas we have heard. So Vittorio, what are the Sony CLS expectations for our territory, and what comments you would like to add to this important presentation on this afternoon?
Okay. First of all, thanks a lot to everyone. It's been a long afternoon. I guess we're all exhausted. The expectations, I guess, are clear. The expectations are being able to collaborate with everyone, all the actors of the pipeline in addressing these difficult challenges. And I guess the main message, the main keyword is openness. So we are very open to interact with everyone and open to new ideas, also new ways to interact and collaborate. There are no preclusions whatsoever. Yes, that's all. So, our door is open, wide open, and yes, let's interact. So before moving to more pleasant activities today, and Barbara will tell us what we can do, of course, in addition to the cocktail, which we're all waiting for. I wish to thank everyone who made this possible. Of course, all the speakers today, all the contributors, but since my Alzheimer is galloping very quickly, I have the tendency to write down, all the people who made this event possible. Of course, in addition to all the people you saw already on stage. So I would perhaps ask Milena to pass the list like the final tale of a movie. There are two persons I like to thank personally, and in particular, who are Milena Di Canio, who are actually sitting, at the end of the hall there, and Elisabetta Falivene. They're been, taking an incredible charge on their shoulders and coordinating, and as you can see, an incredible number of people from Sony, but from very different institutions, from CREF, Sapienza, and of course all the contributors. So thanks a lot, a really wonderful thank to everyone. Thanks to all of you for attending this long and perhaps stressful session. And perhaps we can move to some more pleasant activities.
Yes, I remember everyone that this event was live on Sony CSL YouTube channel, where in the next few days you will find the entire live stream and also the clips of individual speeches. Now it will be possible to do some cultural activities. So visit the Enrico Fermi Museum building. You have to refer to Miriam Focaccia. She will wait for the people who would like to visit the museum. And see the works of the contemporary artist Fernando Cobello, who created some illustration about the research teams of the Sony CSL Rome. And you can also try the VR experience in the Ettore Majorana room on the first floor. And for both of these activities, you have to refer to Alessandro Landei that wait for you. I ask Alessandro and Miriam to raise their hand and make themselves visible. So, perfect, you are over there, and Alessandro, I don't see Alessandro.
But I guess we can already start moving to the courtyard for the... Alessandro is coming.
Alessandro is coming.
Yes.
Yes, this
you
is...
Stay there, don't
stay
move.
there.
Stay there, don't move.
He's Alessandro. And soon the cocktail party organized by Sony CSL Rome will also start. Enjoy the evening, and thank you to all of you.
Thanks a lot.